Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, Umber Rays, and apologies for not getting out videos regularly. The last week to week and a half has been an incredibly busy one at work here, and as I've said many times before, my job is a higher priority than my YouTube. I do not do YouTube professionally, nor do I do it for a living. I do it just for some fun every once in a while. So yeah, that's kind of basically where I have been lately, but we want to talk about a couple things today on today's video. First of all, Duran and Angela from Seiken Densetsu 3. A little bit of a tongue twister, I guess, for me anyway. And I also want to talk about something a little more important, which is the JP situation, a situation that maybe global players are not aware of. And also a brief shout out to, I believe, one of Global's main, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head what I would call her, PR expert, PR person for Brave Exvius on the global side, has left Square Enix. I'm not overly familiar about the situation, mainly because Elytra, or Elytra, I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong either way, she was a big part of the global communication chain, and now that she's gone, I feel like Global's lost a little bit of something really important, which is communication, which has never been Square Enix's strength, and neither has it been Brave Exvius over the course of its history. So that being said, brief shout out to her and all that she did for the community, and hopefully she lands on her feet. I'm sorry, I'm just not overly familiar with her. Anyway, continuing on, let's start with Duran. Duran was a band. No. Duran is one of the new characters. Here he is right here. You can see him. He is basically ended up being kind of what I thought he would be, a physical attacker with AR and Stardust Ray chaining. And his kit ended up being interesting, but the long and short of it is that while he is able to dish out really nice burst damage, he is nothing exciting and nothing overly interesting. He's a physical DPS in a long line of recent physical DPSs. TMR is nice, of course. King of the King, apparently, is his TMR accessory's name. 40 attack, 20% attack when equipped with a sword, and 30% dark resistance. Pretty nice little accessory. Kenosuke is the name of the passive on that. Stats, Super TMR, sword, 175 attack, two-handed weapon with 50% accuracy, and a 1.05 to 1.55 variance with a dark element. Now, I've explained why I don't like the dark element in Brave Exvius. It's just the game itself often tends to lean too much on, well, bad guy's bad, so dark element. And yeah, there are exceptions to it. Soul was more light-based, but dark is a tough element to sell, and I think that's probably going to be a problem that I have with him over the future. Other than that, base 209 attack with an extra 65 points put in. 197 defense is pretty solid. Spirit's a little less solid. HP's good, but continuing on. Equipment-wise, good enough for what his options are. His Lure Burst, maxed out 7-star. Defense decrease of 74% for 3 turns to all enemies. Decreased dark resistance 100% for 3 turns to all enemies, and a physical attack damage of it at 35 times mod. Pretty high little mod. The defense down just isn't going to be that big of a deal in most boss fights, because again, to make boss fights more tanky recently, they just make a ton of bosses immune to defense break, so not super great. And only 100% dark resistance down. Most of the time recently, a lot of damage dealers feel like they get 120% down for their element, so this continues to just make me unexcited about the idea of a primarily dark damage dealer. His passives are fine for equipping a sword or a great sword. You get some spirit bonuses. I believe about 100 to 150%, no, it's 150% true dual wield. He gets an upgraded limit burst for equipping his own TMR and Super TMR. Just a lot of attack, charm resistance, 5% MP recovery per turn. Overall, his passives are pretty nice to give a few modifiers up. But that's really not the interesting thing. The interesting thing, I think, is that he gets, first of all, AR chaining, which, you know me, I'm always a big fan of AR chaining. But his elemental options are better than I thought, than what they were advertised, and that doesn't surprise me. Alum's pretty shitty about advertising their characters in game by giving very limited details, and I just feel like anybody could do a better write-ups. You're supposed to get people excited and interested in your characters, and you leave out so many details. I know it's a preview, but still. Anyway, Flame Saber, Ice Saber, Moon Saber, Leaf Saber, which is ground. I guess we don't have a wood element in the game. Anyway, and Dark Saber. So he has all of these attacks to them. Each of them are Stardust Ray chaining, and each of them do something different. Flame Saber adds fire element to his attacks for multiple turns. The ice one adds ice to his attacks for multiple turns. The light one recovers 3,000 HP to all allies. Leaf Saber 25 MP, which is pretty schmeh. That's nothing in terms of MP, but okay. And the Dark Saber adds the dark element. So he does have 3 elements to him. That makes him a lot more valuable than just being a dark. But dark is his main element. Dark is the element that he does the big debuff for, so that's the one you kind of want to use. Running Dust Free, backloaded Stardust Ray damage, good modifiers. Class change, Gladiator, a increased dark resistance, 50% for a million billion turns, and yes, that is how it's coded. Increased modifier 2.5 times that cannot be dispelled for a lot of his attacks, and increased limit burst damage 15%. So it's interesting to see some non-dispellable element. It also gives him triple cast for 2 turns, as well as a enable a skill for 1 use to the caster, class change, Duelist. And Duelist increases his dark resistance 100% for many turns. For, you know, just a long time. Increases modifiers again and ups his limit burst damage. So he's kind of this idea of taking multiple turns to get more powered up and give himself some modifiers that cannot be dispelled. Kind of like Bart's, but without the undispellable part. That's pretty nice. He has natural double casting, and then we get into his 7-star, which is probably where the most interesting stuff is. 10 turn cooldown, available turn 1, decreases his defense by 15%, increases attack by 250%, cannot be dispelled by the way, increase modifiers for his attacks again, and increase limit burst gauge fill rate by 250% for 10 turns, and enables triple cast for 5 turns. From there, he just has some more Stardust Ray chaining in his kit, as well as a 1 more cooldown. Available turn 4 on a 4-turn cooldown is physical damage, backloaded damage, Stardust Ray chaining. That enables another skill and decreases fire, ice, and dark resistance for 100% for 2 turns. That's basically why he's not good enough for the fire and ice element. He doesn't have a consistent enough element, although he could potentially with another chainer. He takes a while to get going, but he does have some power in there. Whether or not it actually will be worth it, I just don't feel like it. There's so many good damage dealers in JP right now, and this character just doesn't feel like he is the next great one. Most people are saying that he is just pretty darn good, and I have to tend to agree with that. Nothing wrong with him, but nothing overly exciting about him. And now we move on to Angela, the other character. See, there she is. Bounce for us, Angela. Oh no, she's attacking. Oh, anyway, this is a serious review made by serious people, written by serious people who do not exist. Anyway, Angela is a magic attacker as well as a debuffer. Her TMR robe is 31 defense, 65 magic, light and dark of 20% resistance. Nothing to complain about there. Super TMR materia, 70% magic, increase 50% when basically 50% true dual hand, so 120% magic stats and 50% charm resistance. No complaints. Pretty nice for a Super TMR, but, you know, Super TMRs be whale bait, especially on very limited time banners, even if the rainbows are all SK3. Again, I'm not overly familiar with Seiken Densetsu, so sorry, my bad. And yes, I know people have been posting, oh, this is what this is what that. I've never been that interested in it, so. But, hey, those comments might be useful for other people in the chat who want to check this out. Anyway, she's a decent enough mage, 219 basic magic stat, 202 base spirit, and defense is 165, 4,576 for HP. Nothing really bad there. And guess what she is? She's a Chaos Wave Chainer, because of course she is. She also does have some Stardust Ray Chaining in her kit. So looking at her Limit Burst, Pink Typhoon, increase magic 300% for 3 turns to the caster, so you're probably going to want to spam this Limit Burst a lot. Caster decreases spirit 74% for 3 turns to all enemies, and a magic damage of 17 times, ignoring spirit 50%. You know, a really big magic boost for multiple turns that is potentially spammable, but her Limit Burst also costs 40, so it is getting a little bit up there in terms of cost. Ice resistance, MP stats, 5% MP recovery per turn off the top. Basically a true dual hand magic wielder, and that's kind of not so great because lately it's been more true dual wield magic that is more exciting, more powerful, but hey, this girl doesn't look like a slouch by any means. Boost for equipping a rod, of course. Cast runway magic at the start of battle or when revived, which is increased magic 100% for a billion turns to the caster, and enables triple spell for 1 turn. So you revive her, she gets triple cast for 1 turn. Continuing on, sorry about that. She has extra damage versus dragons. She has, you know, some limit burst per turn, ice resistance, stop resistance, 50% more true dual hand magic. Sorry. And a chance for a couple of counters when she gets up to level 120, which is, I do believe, Cure Magic breaks to the caster, and it gives some modifiers up for 2 turns. Kind of an interesting one to have in her kit. Nothing wrong with that, and it's a little bit of a different of a counter, so there you go. Anyway, in her kit, she has Ice Smash, Diamond Missile, and Gabil Gate, Ice, Earth, and Dark Chaos Wave Chaining that debuff 60% Spirit to all enemies. Again, not so great on bosses, because bosses will most likely be immune to that. She has Dark Force, which can decrease Dark Resistance 120% for 3 turns to all enemies. She has Stone Cloud, Dark Force, and Cold Blaze, all backloaded Chaos Wave Chaining damage for the same elements as before. She has a stronger Earth one. She has a chance to kill all enemies is on a Chaos Wave Chain as well. 30% chance to cause death. Probably can't be used in arena, so meh on that one in a big way. And she has Stardust Ray Dark damage. Again, Stardust Ray, cool. Dark only, not so much. She has double casting of her spells. She has Shield of Mana, mitigate magic damage 30% for 3 turns to all allies, and enables a triple spell for 3 turns. So she has a way to protect her allies and give herself a triple spell. Kind of interesting. Her cooldowns in her 7-star are as follows. 7-turn cooldown, ability turn 1. 250% magic increase for 6 turns to the caster, can't be dispelled. Recover 600 MP split over 6 turns, so 100 MP per turn. Increase modifier of 6 times to a lot of her spells, and enables quad spells. So she can get quad casting for 5 turns, but it is on a 7-turn cooldown, so there is quite a bit of downtime. Her other one, Intelligent, is 4-turn cooldown, available turn 4. Chaos Wave Chaining, majorly backloaded, ignoring 50% spirit. Increased modifiers for a lot of her other abilities, and it's Chaos Wave Chaining, because of course it is, you guys. It's how the JP side works. And she also has a fire, ice, lightning, water, wind, earth, light, and dark damage with a 6 times mod to all enemies. Increase all elemental resistance 50% for 2 turns to all allies. So a little bit of interesting support there on an AR chaining, but with all those elements, you're never going to use that ability on any boss that has any elemental resistance. And just as the music is fading out, perfect timing to talk about what I feel like of this banner. This banner is totally okay. It's not grazing great. It's not amazing. I think there's nothing really overly new or exciting here. But if you're a Seiken 3 fan, this is definitely a pretty cool, pretty solid set of characters, both magic and physical. The problem is that recently on the JP side, damage has been just such a stacked category, and it's hard to see, like, if you're really waiting for that next power jump and you're not just a fan of these characters, then yeah, doesn't really matter. But that's kind of what it is. I think both characters are solid, but not necessary if you've had any of the most recent damage dealers. So moving on. And now we're going to talk about the JP situation, because I am retired at this point. There is something that has been interesting happening lately that I have noticed, which is a speed up of events on the JP side, and one that is kind of causing JP players a little bit of, how shall we say, let's be cordial about this, discomfort. A big discomfort for a lot of JP players right now is how fast the events are coming, and the fact that now a lot of events are operating on a more compact time frame, meaning that there is a lot less time to do these events. Now, this normally wouldn't be a problem except for the fact that the grind has not been decreased for these events. As a matter of fact, the grind has been is pretty damn high. Back when I was playing on the JP side, the new type of Mod Kings require 100,000 event points if you want to get everything out of them, and if you want to farm everything, it's also a lot of time that you need to spend. But on a 14-day time schedule, it was fairly manageable. It was okay. But it did require using some stamina pots, and stamina pots for new players is definitely a little more frustrating than people who have been playing for a long time. You know, I had 2,000 of them, so not as much of a big deal for me as Johnny New Player, who probably only has 20 and would like to, you know, maybe try hard to get all the stuff that he can because he's a new account and he's struggling. But now Mod Kings have gone from 14 days on the JP side down to 10 days, and that is a lot less time to try and get everything done. But it's not just that. Everything has kind of been compressed. The story event, this new Seiken event, all reduced time frames, and a lot of it has been very limited. The Seiken event, as well as the Mod King, have been limited. And whether or not, you know, the story event this time around, which had a fairly mediocre kit character, so of course it wasn't a festival character, and whether or not the raid at the end of the month, it is more banners now on a faster pace with still as much grind as before as the slower pace. And it could be adjusted in the future. It very well could be. It could be adjusted because there are a lot of people that are pissed off. Again, Alum just cannot catch a break, nor do they necessarily deserve to. I have found that the grind and don't get me wrong, I play Epic 7. Epic 7 has a tremendous grind too. But here's the thing. The grind for Brave Exvius does not feel as satisfying for old players as it does for new players, because at a certain point you hit critical mass where you just don't really need that equipment, and the equipment goes from being, wow, I really need that, to, wow, I should probably add that to my collection, whether or not I use it in the future. That is the way it was for me on Brave Exvius for a long time, of just being like, well, the event equipment's nice, so I'll get it, but you know, as a collector thing or as a just player, you kind of don't want to miss out on it, because down the road, especially if it has elemental resistance, it could be really important. The time frame for these events is really important because it signifies a couple of things on Alum's part. First of all, they are really nervous about losing their player base, so they are trying to shore things up. both probably in their reports to Square Enix, because a lot of these gacha games need to do reports about how much their players are spending in time, whether they'll login reports. Are people spending a lot of time logging in? Are they constantly in the game? If they're not constantly in the game, they're in competitions game. Well, they might be spending money there. And the other thing about all these events being much shorter is it's more pressure to spend. Hey, you want these characters? Well, whales, you got to spend more. You got to spend more regularly. You got to spend more often. But it just makes for, I think, a situation where a lot of people are unhappy. And whether this continues or not into the future, it, again, feels like another really shit move on Alum's part. And I hate to say that this is complaining, because I don't feel like it's complaining. I'm really criticizing this on the part of Alum. They have this desire to essentially keep as many players as they possibly can, but they are speeding things up and increasing the pressure of people, and just generally, it's just making things more frustrating. It has nothing to do with whether or not. And all of this kind of just stems from this idea that Alum has put themselves into this position, which will not make me feel bad if, Brave Exvius just completely fails and shuts down. Brave Exvius has made a lot of bad decisions on the JP side that has pushed a lot of its player base away. There's also a ton of competition out there. So instead of Alum trying to get more players in and, just do things better with better communication and everything, they seem to be pushing their player base more towards frustration, especially with the more recent live stream, which was, of course, a little while ago, but I've been very busy, so I haven't commented on that too much. They just don't really have great communication, and they seem to be doubling down on the idea of, let's just milk everyone for what they're worth that we have now, and if people leave, well, we have a secondary game coming out, so who cares? And then it'll probably be the exact same thing. I've talked with quite a few people about TAC, the Alchemist code, which basically, War of the Visions is just a reskinned version with Final Fantasy stuff over top of it. Like the art style or anything like that isn't even a big concern to me. It's TAC's record of essentially just an amazingly fast power creep. And that does not bode well for, my excitement for that game, or for the future of, I guess, Brave Exvius. This idea that we are disposable. We are very disposable. Whatever our wallets are now, that is exactly how much value. And it's a little disappointing. Again, I really like playing Brave Exvius. If I didn't enjoy playing Brave Exvius, I wouldn't have been playing it for so long. People usually don't stay in situations where they're completely miserable. And that's kind of the thing. Will this be, if this continues, it's just going to push JP even further down and probably be the final nail in its coffin. Even at this point, I feel like people are just barely hanging on. For global players who are like, well, all you did was complain about for the last 3 months. That's the way a lot of the JP community is. There are some people that are still very happy and having fun for whatever reason. And there are a lot of old players, too, that are beyond frustrated with a lot of the decisions and game direction that the game design has gone. Again, we'll have to wait and see if Alum continues this, but this is the more recent problem. Just a speeding up of things to get more banners out faster and probably keep the player base more entrapped. Either way, it's a little bit sad still to see it keep going this way. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next video.